So, all right. My hair is super frizzy right now, but you know, when does it ever look the way it's supposed to? Okay. So, so, it's January 31st, 2024, and it was 3:33 p.m. when I started recording this. This is a very hard video for me to make, and it's taking a lot of courage. I'm not even sure if this is the version of it that's going to be posted. I very much feel like that fear inside of me that keeps stopping me. But I'm gonna keep going. I tried to plan out what I wanted to say, but I don't really do so well when I do that, so I think I'm just going to sort of flow with it. Hello, internet, or whomever is watching this. At the time of posting this video, I am in my, I will say, last month of being at this location, because I am now completely out of money, and so I am gearing up to be homeless. And you know, that that's a whole thing where I'm going to have to like figure out how I'm gonna sell all my stuff, and I know I could probably get some money for it that'll keep me going, but it's also just going to be such a hassle, and I don't really look forward to living out of my car, and with my dietary issues and my health issues, because I genuinely physically can't walk without certain medication. That's not even an exaggeration. I don't really know how my future is going to pan out. So, you know, I actually am surprised that I made it this far and got to this point, because I did not even think that I would. Back in September, I was pretty sure I was just going to kick the bucket finally, because my health was just so bad. And it continues to do this, and without the stability of, like, you know, housing and finances as a disabled person, I know that I'm not going to make it now. So there's a lot of fear within me that I'm just like really trying to just sit with. And I am in also this situation because, like, I just have no support networks, no support systems. From this point, from when I'm recording this, I have completely cut contact with my family, who was barely financially supporting me, but it was like there was a lot of abuse tied to it that I just got to a point where I was like, you know, I would rather kick the bucket than continue to be in this situation. And it was sort of the same with being on the internet and accepting donations. There was just so much abuse tied to it that it felt like it was keeping me trapped, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore, so I had to step away. And unfortunately, you know, because of the fact that I do have disabilities and things, you know, I just was not able to really function in society, and I still can't. So I'm kind of like screwed, and I was never good at monetizing my gifts and my talents, like my art, because unfortunately it just stifled my creativity and made me unable to express myself. So I kind of really got into a hole, and I was scared to post online again because I understand that when I left, apparently a lot happened, and I actually never saw any of it because I have quite literally not been online in months. So I have no idea what went down after I left. I don't know what was said about me, against me, in defense of me, but I will say that whatever happened was something that I felt was really not about me. It felt like I was just sort of being used as this imaginary, I felt like I was kind of being projected onto as this figure that was representing these two polarized sides that were going at it with each other. And so, I know that a lot of what was probably said about me, I know is obviously not true, but I also just realized that I could not, for my own health, stay in an environment where that was sort of who I was reduced down to. I had to realize that there's a lot of things in my life that I can't control. I can't control what people want to say about me and how people want to perceive me. I can't control the physical limitations of my body. If my body says no, then my body doesn't want to work, and I can't just choose to be healthier suddenly. I can't control the way society is. Really, the only thing I can control is myself and my responses to these situations that feel very overwhelming and very scary. And so what I learned was that the only thing that I could really do was remove myself from it. And so when I removed myself from all of it, I felt like I had finally stepped out of and broken this cycle of karma, as I will put it, where I was no longer involved in whatever was happening, and I had finally found my freedom. And so I wanted to stay that way for the rest of my life, never have to go back, never have to explain myself, and I'm still not going to, because I know that I've done nothing wrong, and just walk away from all of it for good. And I knew at that point that I was either going to die or maybe my situation would get better. But instead, it stayed the same. And in it staying the same, it became something that I just couldn't bear anymore. I couldn't bear living in this same cycle, this same pattern of just feeling trapped and stuck, where my life does not go backwards or forwards. It just stays in this sort of limbo. And so for me, I had to really go within these last months and reevaluate who I was and what I wanted out of my life. And there's a big part to this that I haven't really explained yet. This actually isn't coming out at all how I wanted it to sound, so it's a little all over the place, so maybe I'll have to re-record this, but I had to make decisions, and in the end, I did decide that I would rather, you know, I've been precariously teetering on this edge, this cliff, for the last months of my life. I am surprised that it held together as long as it did. But now it's time to fall, and I'm either going to maybe by some miracle fly off into the sun. Okay, not into the sun, because then you burn up. But you know what I mean. Or maybe I'm going to fall in a giant pile of feathers. Or I'm gonna die. Or I'm going to catch a branch and continue to stay stuck. And because I have decided that I don't want to stay stuck, I am pushing myself off this cliff by no longer accepting help, allowing myself to become homeless, knowing that there's no government support for me, there's no medical support, there's no nothing that this society has to offer me anymore, because it is so broken and it is so dysfunctional that someone like me just cannot survive in it. And that's been a fear of mine and why I have held on for so long. But you reach a point where you're just like, you know, no more. Even just holding on is not worth it, you know? And I'm not saying this to sound like a downer, but this is the reality of what I went through. I felt like I could never go back after what had happened to me this last year. So, when I said, I'm just going to let myself die, none of that was an exaggeration. None of that was a lie. But somehow, I'm still here. And I realize that something has to change, because I can't stay in whatever this is any longer. And so there's another part to this story that I'm now going to talk about because I began to realize that perhaps every path that I looked to try to find a way out, it was blocked. Every path was blocked. You know, I didn't have the support I needed from my family. And I couldn't stay stuck in this online cycle to receive financial help, because it was really just killing my essence of who I was, to just constantly be reduced down to this online drama that really had nothing to do with me. And it was painful, very painful. And when I tried to look for solutions, any kind of housing assistance, disability, nothing. There were so many reasons why it felt like the door slammed itself in my face over and over. Even with my health, I lost access to the doctor that was giving me medication that kept me functional, so I had to lose access to about half of my medications, which made my health, it's like kind of plateaued, but it's basically at a baseline of not very functional. And when I did get in contact with a doctor who believed me but was not able to treat me, even she was just like, yeah, I don't think Western medicine can offer you anything at this point, because we've just done years of so many referrals and tests, and I probably needed a holistic doctor, but they charge out of pocket, and what do you need for that? Money. So I just reached this point where it was just like, yeah, there's really just no solution to my situation that is within my control. This isn't even like a situation of learned helplessness. This is a situation of we are in a society that just does not want to help or accommodate people like me. And I know this won't make sense to people who might have more privileges in certain areas of their life, but, you know, it is a very real thing. And I think people who have dealt with chronic illnesses like mine, who have dealt with lack of systemic and familial support, know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to explain that because I have received a lot of judgment about why I don't do X, Y, and Z, and the answer is I looked into all of it and I tried it already. So, sorry, the birds are being noisy. With that, something else happened to me this last year. And when I saw no pathway forward, no practical pathway forward to resolve my situation, no work, no health, no support system, no systemic help, nothing forward, and that I knew that this situation of mine was now inevitable and I can't really avoid it anymore. This is going to be literally my last month with a roof over my head, as far as I'm aware. I won't even have money for my basic necessities after I pay rent tomorrow, so that's kind of where I'm at. But basically, I realized that the only way I can move forward is by, I guess, coming forward and beginning to navigate the world with everything that I have learned this past year. And unfortunately, I wanted to never show my face on the internet again for my own happiness and well-being, but it seems that's not in the cards for me. So I am posting this despite the pit in my stomach, despite the fear and the anxiety that I feel. I might seem very calm, but my body is like internally shaking as I record this, which is also why it's been very hard to record. But I can't control the world around me, but I can speak my truth, and I can express that authentically. And I feel like that's all I can do at this point. And so, regardless of how this sounds, that's what I'm going to do. So, about 1 year ago, on December 16th, 2022 to be exact, I had what I would later come to understand is known as a spiritual awakening. And I am not a spiritual person, not a religious person. I was a hardcore atheist my entire life. I had decided that when I was very young, like I would say 10 years old or even younger. So I didn't touch religion. I didn't touch spirituality. I knew absolutely nothing about it. And I had avoided it my entire life. In fact, I would actually say there's a bit of a cosmic joke in this because I wasn't just an atheist. I identified as an apatheist, which basically is this belief that I'm kind of like atheist aligned, but if the existence of a god was to ever be proven, it would not change anything about the way I lived my life because I just don't care. I was just disinterested. And that's really funny, I guess, seeing where I am now. So I had a spiritual awakening, and at the time I didn't know what that was, but I was in this situation where I was very stuck and hopeless in my life because things were, as usual, not working out. I had tried to go back to school, change careers. It wasn't accommodating of my disabilities. It just was really a shit show. It really sucked. And in a desperate attempt to try to kind of fix my life, I had seen so many videos talked about in scientific communities about how psychedelics can help rewire neural pathways in your brain. And I thought, oh, that's great, because at this point I have treatment-resistant depression. I was on Zoloft for a while, and it really blunted me and made me unable to, like, express myself and draw and all that, but also it made me put on, like, 30 pounds, which I'm only now finally getting off. Holy fuck, it sucked, but yeah, so it just really, like, sucked, and it just, like, I had tried so many different antidepressants when I was younger. That didn't work out. I never had good reactions to any of them. So I was just like, yeah, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to take, a dose of psychedelics mushrooms, I guess, and see what happens. And with this, I really had no expectations about what would happen, except maybe I would be able to connect with parts of my fragmented self because I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and maybe be able to heal that. And I know what people are already thinking. Okay, you took psychedelics, so you clearly had some break from reality if you had a spiritual awakening. But I do want to point out what's interesting about this is when I was going through my journals, I was actually already having that awakening before the psychedelics. All they did was basically expedite it. So I took them, and the next thing I knew, I was face to face with the one infinite creator of all that is, and learned that, not even learned, I want to say I remembered, but it wasn't a remembering. It was more like I had already known this. I had always known this, that we are all one being, this higher dimensional being that is experiencing itself through us, and our vessels are basically its sensory organs, its feelers, and we are all it having these experiences here. And so, yeah, and that was just this huge thing, because it wasn't even like, oh, I remember this. It was like, oh yeah, I know this. And then I was like, wait, when did I forget? And so that was this very profound experience. And I took that and was like, wow, that's amazing. So basically the fundamental nature of reality is consciousness. We are all just consciousness having an experience and viewing itself through different vantage points and different perspectives so that it can understand itself. And I thought, well, that peak experience, I've now learned the true nature of reality, and I'm going to go back to my life as it was. But that didn't happen. My life changed profoundly overnight. And everything I thought that I knew about myself, the world around me, just disintegrated. And at first it was very blissful, because there is something very beautiful in that remembering and feeling that unconditional love, because the true nature of reality is love. It's consciousness and it's love. And so that was cool for a bit, but then of course, because I didn't know what a spiritual awakening was, once you start on that path, everything in your life starts to fall apart. And so I just began losing everything. Instead of my life getting better or feeling more bearable, it just got harder and harder and harder as everything was stripped from me, one thing after another, after another, after another. And so friends of mine had, thought that I had gone insane and began judging me. I lost a lot of friends after that. Very few people stayed in my life after that, and I can kind of get it, because so my awakening was very unexpected to me. Aliens played a big role in it, which is really funny. So it was suddenly I just began having these very intense experiences. And so this whole last year of my life, I have basically been having to integrate just profound amounts of information about the true nature of reality and why we come to Earth, what we're doing here, and what's been going on with all that. And then I have to try to balance this very, I would say, life that we think is the world, which is very limited. Our society has such a limited view of the truth and reality and what is and isn't possible. And so I had to grapple with these two sides, just kind of really butting heads with each other. And it was hard because on this one hand, I was going through these profound changes and becoming a completely different person. But then meanwhile, I had to go back to this life where people perceived me in this very narrow box and perceived reality in this very narrow box. And I just felt like I was being crushed in it. And so during that year, this last year, I just began losing friends. People thought I had gone insane. I got abducted by negatively oriented aliens. So if you know about like the gray aliens, like I got abducted by them. So that was a huge thing, and that happened like very early on in my spiritual awakening. And so everyone was like, all right, Angela's totally gone fucking batshit. They're not talking about being abducted by aliens. And so that happened, and it was very visceral, very hard for me to grapple with because it really happened. Like, it was a real experience. Like, it really happened. It wasn't a hallucination. It actually happened. And I knew no one was going to believe me. And so when I did try to talk about it, of course, I was met with judgment. And so then, like, I just had to start dealing with knowing this other side to reality that, you know, everyone else was unaware of. And apparently this stuff is like very well talked about in spiritual communities, but I wasn't in them. So I had no idea what was happening to me. And then when I found myself trying to see if I could get involved in spiritual communities, because I was like, oh yeah, there's, you know, like, I would say New Age spirituality is really a catch-all for many different things, and a lot of these things have very little in common with each other, except that they're like strung together by like this very underlying truth that we are all one being experiencing itself, and that you have to go within to find God, not look outside of you. But I found that I was immediately met with like a lot of judgment in those spaces, and I wasn't in them for long. I like maybe popped into like maybe like one or two like groups, and then like within like a week or two I was gone. I was met with a lot of judgment. A lot of people were not very nice, and I was like shocked by that because I thought, oh wow, these people are spiritual, they've had awakening, so clearly they know it too. And then I was like, oh, never mind, they're actually trying to understand this information without that intuitive knowing, and they're still kind of, yeah, not great for me to be around. So that didn't pan out. And then I got exposed to, of course, the what I like to call the cult of the law of attraction, which didn't bode well with me as somebody who had spent a long time in these fiction versus reality, pro-ship, anti-ship communities. So I was like, yeah, no, you're not going to convince me that having dirty thoughts is making my life miserable or creating a bad reality. And it definitely is not like that at all. I think that, okay, I'm not even touching that right now. So anyways, so yeah, I had to like navigate this other world, this other side, with really no guidance or help from anyone around me, and really just judgment from the people around me. And so that was very hard. And as I was going through this like awakening, I realized that the life that I was living, I could not return to even if I wanted to, and I didn't. Because I now felt like I know too much. I can't just go back and just pretend that all of this is okay, all of this is normal. And I had been feeling that for a while, you know, that the way that people are right now and the way they treat each other online and the way our society is busted as fuck. But like, that was just the point where I was like, this is the point of no return. I've seen things that I wouldn't say are uncommon for people who have had awakenings. So like, just know that I'm not like saying I'm more special or anything, but I'm just saying that like, it really does just make you feel very isolated. And along with that, my life was just continuing to fall apart. So I was just like, oh my God, you know, there is a creator, and is my life just meant for suffering just so that they could have the experience of what it's like to suffer? And of course, you know, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't matter, but because in the end we are eternal beings. But, you know, I had to face a lot of these feelings and fears within me, and I've had to work through a lot of them. And what I'm trying to say is that it was just a lot. Like, it was just a lot. It was way too much for one person to go through. And then when things finally just hit that head of like, I can't be online anymore, I can't handle this anymore, this stuff has nothing to do with me, I don't have a connection or tie to it anymore, I don't understand the way people are behaving, the way people are treating each other, I just need to remove myself from it because my own life is in shambles, and I feel like just staying in it is making me sick. And, you know, with my spiritual awakening, I did just feel called to need to just extract myself from everything that was just causing my life to stay where it was. And I really don't know how to talk about this. It's very hard to summarize, as you can see. I was hoping I could have like a short 5-minute video explaining things, but yeah, it's a lot. It would actually take me hours to explain in detail everything that I have gone through this last year, so. But there is a truth about myself that I learned, and my higher mind can say this with so much confidence because they don't give a fuck, but I do feel the fear, so I don't know how to talk about it, but it feels important to, so. But when I had reached that breaking point, I had learned that okay, so now we're getting into the stuff where if I didn't sound schizophrenic or delusional before, I really am going to now, but just bear with me. And you know what? If you feel that way about me, that's fine. I'm going to futilely ask you keep your comments to yourself because I don't really care and don't need your input if you disagree. But I had learned that I, as a vessel, I'm referring to the body and the mind as the vessel, have actually been, my soul has actually been incarnating here on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years because they were just trying to gather information and learn all that they could because of something that not just myself, but many of us have come to Earth in this particular time frame to accomplish, and that is the mass awakening. So this is going to take a lot of context. I'm not getting into that in this video. I'm just trying to explain my understanding sort of from my vantage point, but basically I found out that it is hard to find the words to say. It is hard. So apparently my soul has been incarnating here on Earth for a long time. And they've been doing this for a particular mission that involves this vessel or this particular incarnation. Actually, I was told at the beginning of my awakening a year ago that this is actually my last incarnation on Earth. This is the, and keep in mind, in the higher dimensions, time is non-linear. Everything happens in an eternal present. But from our vantage point here on Earth, this is my last incarnation on Earth. And so apparently I am a vessel or a being that belongs to this very big collective of aliens. Yes, aliens. And we are eternal wanderers who basically travel to different planets, different star systems, different galaxies, different dimensions. And we experience and we learn. And everyone's soul is on a journey, so this is not something unique to me. It's actually a truth for all of us. And we came to Earth to assist in what is going to be known as the mass awakening, which is to soon occur. So humans are not alone. Of course, there's other aliens. Of course, we're around. I say we because the higher mind is trying to help me a bit through this, but of course we've always been around. Because creation is experiencing itself. Why would humans be the only intelligent life out there? But the reason why you don't perceive us is because we exist in dimensions that are above or in between yours. And if you've ever watched Star Trek, this vessel has not watched Star Trek, but we're still going to make this comparison. Apparently the creator of Star Trek did channel, and there is the non-interference rule where we are not supposed to directly interfere with developing life. And so we will not physically appear in your skies and come down to Earth and say hello to you, because if we do, that will violate your free will, which we have to respect. And what we mean by that is that you will either see us as saviors and then look to us for all your answers when you are supposed to develop your own sovereignty and go within and find your own truth within yourselves. Or you might see us as enemies, and that would create a lot of fear and make you feel powerless, which is not what we as ETs, extraterrestrials, want. So, humans, you were a developing species, and we've been watching over you for since your inception. And you are developing to a point in your space-time which we call the singularity. And this is what one would call the point of no return. And this is not said to instill fear in any of you, because we're not talking about an apocalypse in a scary way. We're just stating that, as you can see, your way of living, the way you treat each other, the way your society works, the way that you're not taking care of your planet is causing a lot of problems, and you are either going to destroy yourselves or your planet, Earth, Gaia. As she becomes conscious, she's going to begin shaking you off like fleas because you are being destructive. And the singularity, as we refer to it, is the point where technology advances faster than your own consciousness and your own awareness. And so if you advance too far technologically without your spiritual and, I would say, mental capabilities keeping up with it, then everything will begin to collapse. And so to avoid this, and also because in World War II you all began playing with nuclear weapons, which is bad, very bad, because nuclear weapons don't just impact your planet, but they can damage the entire space-time, and all of us are affected. So we had to begin finding ways to intervene. And so because we cannot just show up directly as ETs if you humans are not evolved enough to handle that, especially if you're going to look at us with fear. We do not want you to fear us. We want you to know that we're actually not like your media depicts us. We are very loving, very intelligent, very benevolent. If we weren't, you wouldn't be here. There are some negatively oriented ETs, but we do our best to try to protect you from them. And while their influence is in your government systems, because Earth is a very high priority planet and there is this war that goes on between these different sides, we do want you to know that overall we do not want you to fall into those timelines of fearing ETs, because we want you to have that peaceful, open contact with us. And so, because we could not directly intervene, we began sending down what you humans became aware of as starseeds, as you call them. And they were ET souls or souls that had ET, or, well, how do I put it? Because the soul is technically, it can be anything and everything. It incarnates as all sorts of stuff. But ETs, our souls, decided to incarnate on your planet with the mission to help try to raise the frequency of Earth into something that is more love-based instead of fear-based. And so this happened where we would come down and we would be asleep, as we put it, unconscious, not aware of who we were. And just our presence there would help raise the energy of the planet and the beings around us, whether or not they were aware of it. But as things are ramping up, we're reaching a point where there has to be a mass awakening, because if there is not, your planet will not make it. And so there were many of us who came down here on Earth who had encoded in our DNA a wake-up call where we would become aware of the true nature of reality, and our job is to work from within. We're called ground workers, to help more individuals wake up and realize their own power. Keep in mind, we're not saying that we're above you or that we're better than you or that we're more special. This is just a job that we do. And we do this to help you realize your own personal power so that you as individuals and as a collective can start coming together and act in a way that will promote change for the better. And Earth is very polarized right now between fear and love. And what we need people to do is to step into their personal power and embrace unconditional love, because that is what you are here to actually learn. So this vessel was one of the vessels that we, specifically our Souls Collective, sent down here with the intent to help wake people up. And that is what we're here to do. And so I know that they feel a lot of fear and apprehension about where their life's going to go next. But we want them to know that stepping forward and speaking their truth, as we are channeling through them right now, is what they are here to do and what they are supposed to do. And they were hesitant to come forward with any of this information. They had held on to it for over a year, not just from fear of judgment, but also because they felt that they were not good enough or didn't have anything worthwhile to share. But we know that there is importance in what they have to say and in what we have to say through them. And so we want to, through this video, encourage them to share this information and share what they have to say. And with that, we are going to give this vessel the Angela personality, the ego personality in here, that's been mostly deconstructed back so they can have the spotlight and finish what it is they wanted to say. So, I think they took over a bit, but that's what I learned. That I actually am part of a giant family of aliens who want me as the vessel, which my name is Angela. I used to go by Ange, but my name is Angela because Angela means messenger, and I am not the only messenger. I am one of many, but I am one of the messengers. And that is what I am here to do, I guess. And yeah, I've learned all of this past year, and I've just held on to it and haven't told anyone. And when I did try to talk about it, I was met with a lot of judgment, and I'm fully aware of how it all sounds, but this is my truth. This is what I know. And so I know that the only way that I can really move forward in my life is to embody and to speak this truth. So I learned that I am part of this collective of aliens, and they are my family, my soul family, because they are all me incarnated as different things, different species from different planets, different worlds, and they speak through me. I would say that like our soul is almost like a telephone line where we all have, or like kind of like the internet where we all have communication with each other. And this is very different than DID. If you're not familiar with dissociative identity disorder, you can disregard this part, but I was diagnosed with DID when I was like 19, 18 years old, and the difference here is that alters are fragmented parts of the ego that exist within the body that have their own personalities and their own ways of being, and sometimes they carry imprints of past lives or karmic imprints, and that all has to be healed and they have to be integrated. And keep in mind, integration doesn't mean becoming one necessarily. It means working together harmoniously. But my alien lives are not ego states within my own mind. They are, from this vantage point, actual beings living their own lives on their own planets in their own worlds, but they are just sharing and communicating through me because they are incredibly intelligent, incredibly telepathic, and so they began guiding me and began teaching me so many things. And I've met so many aliens that really come from things my own soul has gotten up to, because as I've come to learn, they do talk about, Pleiadians and Arcturians and all that in spiritual communities, but my collective comes from somewhere very, very far away, so we are sharing a lot of experiences and energy from places that actually aren't very well known to Earth humans, even in their little bubbles of, like, what they know of, like, ET lives. And I think that's really cool because they want to share something new and different. And their message and what they want to share with everyone and what we want to share with everyone is that creation is really weird. Creation is weird. It's kind of fucked up too, as you've probably noticed. And expressing yourself through love and excitement and passion is really how you begin to step into your power and live your best life, when you go within and realize that the truth of who you are and what you came here to do is within you but not outside of you. And when we start stepping into our personal power and expressing ourselves and allowing ourselves to be weird and cringe and just embracing that, we are expressing our unique energy in this giant co-creation that is all of existence. And it aligns us in harmony, and so we are no longer going against the flow of creation and not harming other beings, because like cosmic law is really all about be as weird and freaky as you want, but just don't cause harm to other beings. And that's what we I guess, and what I'm here to try to help show people, is that you should learn to step into your own power and embrace your own truth. And when you begin to do that and shed the layers of fear and trauma and pain that just have held you back, you can find a way to live that is just authentic and blissful and full of joy and loving. And then when we as individuals step into our personal power, we will harmoniously want to create systems that support everyone, and we won't continue to be stuck in this dysfunctional society. Okay, I guess that popped up for some reason. We won't be stuck in this dysfunctional society that is just completely killing us, and it's designed to, because it has been overrun by dark forces who are trying to keep our consciousness small and keep us in fear and anger. And so you're seeing a lot of that surface right now because everything is starting to reach a head. And if you've noticed that people seem angrier and more polarized, that's why. And so as my alien lives have stepped forward, I've begun learning so many things about who I am and who they are. I've learned that sometimes all you can do is laugh in the face of fear. And I learned that from the Fae. I learned from... They don't have a name for their species, but there's these interdimensional cats who have evolved past our fourth dimension, our third dimension of space, fourth dimension of time. And they taught me how to embrace whimsy and playfulness. And I have learned different dancing styles from different aliens, and it's really funny because I'm not very good at dancing. I've never tried to dance. I didn't know I could dance. I'm not flexible in any way, and so I do feel like my dancing is very limited, but I think the point is not really whether or not it's good to the arbitrary standards of what humans define as good or bad. It's just about that expression, and I think that's what we want people to start embracing, is their true selves. And we want to show you that that's okay to do, even in the face of judgment and fear. Humans were not made to limit themselves like this. We were made to express ourselves as unique aspects of creation. So, it's hard being a human, and it's hard being on Earth. There's so much I could say, but I think you kind of get the idea of where this is going, and maybe I could have recorded a better, more concise version of this, but this is my honest, rambling thoughts. So I don't know what's going to happen next. I am still scared, which is funny because I know I really, logically almost, I would say I don't need to be scared, because no matter what happens to me, this is just one lifetime out of many that I've lived, and I know that ultimately everything is always going to be okay, but this is very hard for me to come forward with, and so that's why I'm doing this, because it feels like it is time for me to start speaking about this and start sharing my truth. And how I am going to share it, what I am going to say, I don't know yet. It's just going to have to flow. And whatever it is my family, my alien family, wants to share is probably going to come through this vessel, and they're going to take turns, I think, channeling through it. And then I will also be sharing what I've learned in my time here being a human. And we're going to try to have this be a group effort. And it's not going to be perfect, of course, but that's okay. I'm going to do my best. And that's what I'm here to do. And so I don't know if I will get to be posting or recording more videos after this, because again, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm about to be homeless. But I feel the only way forward and the only way that I can unstick myself from being stuck is speaking my truth. And I didn't want to come back online because I just did not want anything to do with whatever was happening or whatever I was tied to. But I realize now that sometimes when I looked at all the pathways, there was no good pathway, if that makes sense. Like, all of them were full of strife or blocks. And so sometimes all you can do is you just have to walk through the fire and just try to navigate it one step at a time and with love. Because the cosmic joke is that we're all here to learn unconditional love. Everything is love. And you have a choice every day, every moment of your life, to navigate the world in love instead of fear. And when you feel stuck or lost or things don't make sense, sometimes just taking a step back and learning how to love yourself, how to not judge yourself, and asking yourself, what is the best I can do in this situation? And how can I navigate it from a standpoint that is loving, both in respecting my own sovereignty and, needs, but also, those around me, is the best way to handle a situation. And so, yeah, I guess with this, I might post a couple of my very silly, I'm not saying they're good, but just silly dancing videos. Okay, I feel kind of mean saying that because I don't want to insult my alien family. They're cute, I love them, so. And I just hope that whatever it is I'm meant to do here, my message reaches whoever it's supposed to reach. So, yeah, and also, if you felt called to want to help Earth and society in some way, I would say follow that calling, because a lot of us are here on that mission. And even if you're somebody who does not necessarily identify as, I would say, like, an alien or feel like you came from another planet, even if you feel like, yeah, I'm kind of an Earth soul, that doesn't mean that you can't also get involved. All you have to do is go within and make the decision and set the intent. And maybe together we can make this world a better place by learning how to love ourselves. Because when you love yourself, then that emanates outwards, because everything is consciousness. There is no out there. We are all one being. And that will create the ripple effect that will start reflecting that love in the external. So, yeah, with that, I didn't give context to this in this video, but I am technically what you humans would call an angel, but again, not in a, oh, I'm above you way. It's just what we are, but again, you can't really define it by the term in your own religions or scriptures. So I'm saying this very loosely, but yeah, with that, that's what I had to say. This might have sounded all over the place. I know there's probably a lot of stuff that needs additional context, so if you're lost, that's okay. It's a lot. It would take me hours to go through everything, but I at least wanted to get that message out there. So, what happens next, I guess we'll find out. Thanks if you watch this.